Hashtag FF14 healer strike is going on, and there's a lot of people quite upset, and while I think some of it crossed the line, I actually do agree with some of the points made, as my main role is definitely healing. I didn't even realize during the media tour that literally sitting beside me was Xeno blasting through a dungeon without a healer. I'm not surprised. Or saying that that's the worst thing in the world. More on why I say that in a moment, but I'm also absolutely going to say that that's one reason why myself and many other healers have called for more buttons to the DPS and utility side of the kits. Art of War, Art of War, Art of War, Art of War, Art of War. Hashtag give me back Miasma 2 on Scholar, or any other damage button for fun. I'll cover that near the end of the video because I think that's where things could really be enhanced. I'll take a moment here to say that one of the big features coming with Dawntrail was that there was going to be a content difficulty and reward for doing the content rework coming in 7.0. During the Q&A period, Yoshi P did bring up that job homogenization and job identities was something that they were wanting to look at, but that they didn't want to lump in the content difficulty change alongside the job identity change, which could combine together overwhelm players, and so they want to instead shift the job identity stuff into 8.0. And if you didn't catch that, this is where I'm going to say that you can catch all my media tour coverage easily browsable on my website fx.gg, ad-free, it's totally free. Yeah, a lot of people have been asking, like, where can I get your coverage in an easy to search format? That's probably the easiest way. But yeah, Healer Strike. I've been asked to give my opinion on it, and I'm going to be very blunt in this video, and I should go without saying that I love the developers of this game. I coined the term, like, what years, literally how many years ago? I don't even want to think about it, that saying that the developers are a blessing, and that this criticism does come from a place of genuine love and passion for myself, and I'm sure from others too. Though some posts I've seen across forums, other social medias, this is why we can't have nice things and stuff, maybe a little too spicy given the topic. Yeah, as per usual, I'm gonna have timestamps for the different topics I want to cover because we have a lot of ground. First up, let's get back to Xeno's clear of the new dungeon with no healer. It isn't a surprise to me, other than the fact that we'd be told that it would be a difficulty ramp up in Dawntrail, and doing it without a healer at all kind of feels ugh. Now, thoughts that others have posted that I've been sent, but I'm torn on reading, is they said, does this mean that the only mechanics that healers really exist for at this point is tank busters and AoE damage? Now, I'm gonna elaborate and say that I'm guessing that they meant successive tank busters, because even if all the mitigation is blown at once and they eat that hit, and then a tank swap to the other tank that could blow all their mitigation, we're also forgetting the tanks also have an vulnerability button that is commonly used for tank busters. Okay, then we might need a healer? Is that what they're getting at? Let me be careful though when I say that, and I did kind of start laughing and had to stop recording, but I also want to say that I don't want to ruin the fun of tanks or their agency, player agency, over their own health pools. One reason why I've always gravitated towards Warrior myself was I felt I had a lot more agency myself, and Warrior is my personal number one tank for that reason. I am not going to shy away from my real failings. I have dealt with sussy healers in the past, and I like having control over my own gameplay and not face planting because the healer didn't pay attention. But, and it's a massive Nicki Minaj-sized one, in easier forms of content, there is an undeniable lack of risk. Like, there is nothing expertise requiring about completing an expert roulette. Now, to be totally fair to the developers, we do not know what expert roulette will look like in Dawntrail yet, but as per the media tour dungeon in current state, it's looking a little rough. Now, I'm going to tell you my most brutal, honest, and probably will upset people thoughts. The Dawntrail dungeon is a part of the main storyline, and that is something that even the most casual player who has zero interest, like zero interest at all of doing Savage or any kind of raiding or extreme trials, those players will be subjected and expected to complete that. And one beautiful thing about our player base is that we have players from a range of backgrounds and skill levels, and it's necessary to ensure that everyone can complete this main pipeline. If a main story dungeon was made too difficult, it would be a barrier to continue and obviously would have to be nerfed. That being said, which would you choose? Risk making the mainline trial and dungeon content related to the main pipeline of the game too hard, or would you play it safe and go to more of the side of, like, too easy? I think it's a fair presumption that most people would say logically that it's a better choice to risk going too easy than too hard. I'm also going to say that this impacts players on the high end too, and I'm being quite serious here. How many of you have been in an expert roulette that takes over 25 minutes to clear? Raise of hands. Now I ask how often you've done one in around 11 minutes or so. likely most people have experienced both. Many people view the roulettes as a direct method to get the rewards, even though I'd say that the hunt train is objectively better, much easier, much more streamlined. The hunt train on Gilgamesh is amazing, and I have so many compliments for the conductors of it. But even at the higher end of play, like let's say that you are a Pentalegend DPS top 5th percentile in every fight, but you are put in an expert dungeon where the tank and healer are not meshing well, and you're wiping because of it. Is that necessarily enhancing your own gameplay? Is that giving you a better experience? Or would you personally rather just be in and out and have them AoE pull correctly? Okay, I'm doing my full Black Mage rotation on this pack, just mowing them down and moving on. How many people have been stuck in content that they thought that they could complete before their raid time with their static? That's been me in the past. I was like, oh, I thought that this dungeon would be done in like 20 minutes. Oh, pfft. Just kidding. Actually, that time was an alliance raid. Oof. Now, I'm gonna finish talking about dungeons at this point, is that healers are far from low DPS in dungeons if they are DPSing the full way through. It's very easy to contribute meaningfully to a dungeon, too easy, I'd say. And oftentimes I've heard, as divined from crystal balls and stars in the heaven above, that I've maybe outdone certain other members of my team of the red category. More often than not, especially in something like a casual expert roulette run, I feel like my job more there is to remove friction, to do things like expedient, because the tank doesn't have like sprint at that time, and then just spamming my damage stuff and Heart of War or just crazy until I want to puke. Now let's talk about ultimate raids being cleared without a healer. Ooh, this is gonna get me flamed. I'm gonna still say it. Please be kind. Please be kind. This comes from a kind place for me. Please be kind. My thoughts are that this talking point gets brought up a lot, and there are two feelings that I get from it. The Omega Protocol was cleared with 75 Vercure, Red Mage ability, and 75 Clemency casts, which is from Paladin. On one hand, the fact that the Omega Protocol could be cleared without a healer and with such direct healing, because Clemency and Vercure are pretty much as bare bones as you get, that sucks. That sucks to see. Like, and specifically I'm talking about the fact that that is even possible. Now, the other side of how I feel is that, hey, that is a lot of on GCD casts just dumped into abilities that honestly should probably in normal gameplay not be pressed. Clemency on a Paladin's a GCD cast and you're spending MP on that. That's crap. Red Mage Vercure? When do you want a Red Mage casting Vercure? Like, if I even saw that in like an expert roulette, I would be like, bro, like you can fully trust me on this. Like EOS can cover just EOS. I'm not talking about off GCDs, Whispering Dawn, or Fey Blessing. EOS alone, spamming Embrace can cover most of the healing. Like, if I saw that in my expert, I wouldn't say it, but I'd be like, what? Actually, super quick point about making dungeons harder, now that I'm thinking about it. You cannot give people feedback in this game. If you give people feedback this game, hashtag you don't pay my sub, and hashtag you're a toxic elitist piece of shit. And don't give me feedback. So if you make casual content more difficult, people will need to get ramped up in order to clear it. But you can't give people feedback in this game because you will be labeled as a toxic elitist and possibly banned. I think that's another problem. And before people are like, well, it depends on your tone. Dude, no. I have literally seen people pop right the fudge off. Just being like, hey, would you like do a double pack? And people have popped off. No, you cannot give criticism in this game. I would rather leave a dungeon than type something in party chat other than waving and nice things. Okay, moving back to the Omega Protocol. So, thinking about like how you have these red mages and paladins do that, that is a lot of GCDs being wasted, and so a healer in this instance can effortlessly cover that healing. That is literally OGCD weaves a lot of it. That is massively oversimplifying it, because yes, I've seen the mitigation sheet. Yes, you need on GCD shields, or they're recommended for a lot of stuff. Y'all know what I get at. Trust me, I get it. But relative to 75 bloody GCD casts of cleansing, it is so much less effort for a healer to go in and do that. So this is why you have that split in how I feel. The fact it even could be done is insane, but the fact is that it would be so much easier to do with the healer. Like, keep in mind, these people are like literally some of the absolute best players of gaming across any game in the world, and they have chosen to hone in on Final Fantasy XIV and spend so much free time fine-tuning and honing things in to get through this fight with healer, which they did in fractions of the time on their main normal roles with a healer. And I think that's where my opinion is so difficult to land on this one, because I think that reality is like it is insane, ridiculous to think that I don't even want to say it. I don't even think it's sane to say a fraction of the player base could pull this off. So to say, oh, we don't need healers in the Omega Protocol is objectively a fact, but on the other hand, my brother in Christ, do you really think that you're going to be clearing the Omega Protocol without a healer yourself? I don't. Hell no. And that at a certain point, even let's say that that did become more logical, then you need to look at the realities of healing, which is mostly figuring out how to put the most damage in. And so you're weighing heavier on OGCDs and, hey, the co-healer's gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and really minimizing your on-GCD cast so that you can focus the most on DPS. And it's more about a game of efficiency at that point, which I think, to say the least, 75 Clemency casts from a Paladin and 75 Recures from a Red Mage, I'm pretty confident is not the most efficient way of doing it. And I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. What, you're going to tell me, are you seriously, bro, going to tell me in the comment section 75 Clemency from a Paladin is the most efficient? Bro, no. No, I'm not even gonna, no. There's still gonna be someone saying it, but no. Whereas you can just bring in a Scholar, have Expedient, have all the heals be managed by them, mostly through OGCDs. They're bringing in Chain Stratagem, which everyone knows that everyone loves seeing big number go burr. I think that when we talk about it more from an efficiency standpoint even, we're like, because we already established it's not realistic, but now it's like, even if we're looking at it from an efficiency standpoint, you want that healer. And I also think that this is something that applies to Savage, but I think Savage, solo healing Savage relative to solo healing or no healer top, I think is infinitely more realistic. Although that is still something widely regarded as quite difficult, although definitely we have seen like it happen. Now I want to cite something that I totally agree with, is make everything in your kit and job as unobtrusive to your DPS as possible. Coming from Scholar, we all know we use Dissipation in the massive majority of situations, either at the end of a pack pull to replenish our Aether Flow stacks in a dungeon, or we're going to use it during like pot windows. Why? Because it gives us 3 Aether Flow charges, which means 3 energy drains, which is 100 potency a pop, so we literally get the equivalent of 1 broil or less than 1 Sage Dosis cast. All from like getting rid of our fairy for 30 seconds, unlocking our fairy abilities out, and we still do that. And so everything that we do, even as healers, probably especially as healers, is to make sure that everything in our kit is knocked away in favor of damage being king. And I think that to say that I'm wrong about that would be spitting in the face of absolutely every single healer out there, because there is a reason why we use Dissipation on an opener. That is a reason why we so often pre-shield with the big crit low spread barrier if we don't need it elsewhere in the fight in the first 90 seconds. We do it because every single last drip and drop of potency we have kind of mathed out as being like needed. Unless there is some barrier or bar to entry that says, hey, you really do need this ability here, dummy. And so we're at a point where, probably especially for healers, we have the idea of optimizing our damage rotation as much as possible. Hey, why is our White Mage casting Medica 2? Bro, what are you doing? I literally have Whispering Dawn going right now. You literally don't have an AoE coming in for the next 30 seconds, and Whispering Dawn would easily cover this. That kind of thing is so common to hear in static talk. This really leads me to my third and final really big point, is that healer damage kits with such an emphasis on damage being king are so important, because reality is, in a raid, what am I casting overwhelmingly? Broil, 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 broil. Okay, what am I doing in the dungeon? Artivore, 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 Artivore. It's a lot. And there are, thank God, things like the Dissipation Opener. Like when they removed Energy Drain, I think it was felt so painfully, at least by me. It was like, ugh. Even though it's only 100 potency, and yes, 3 casts of it is still less than 1 single Sage doses. It was just like, having something to do felt good. And even going into Dawntrail, Scholar's looking at 1 single OGCD weave after casting Chain Stratagem. And I am happy. Let me be so clear. I am so happy to see the developers taking the healers in this direction. Every healer got at least 1 new damage button, whether it's on the GCD or not. They at least got 1, and thank God for that. That's a good direction, and I support it fully. I'm so thankful for that. I think this is a better direction for sure, and I'm happy for it. But at the same point in time, how is that going to shake up my dungeon gameplay much? I mean, now I guess I'm going to cast Chain Stratagem, which is still single target in like a pack pull of mobs, which, I mean, sure, okay, you could justify, hey, well, that one mob takes more crit. It makes me feel all kind of ways. But now we're going to have to cast that in order to get the 2-minute AoE damage over time effect, which in a dungeon pull will be much more significant. And so I'm feeling this kind of weird feeling about it. But the fact of the matter is, largely Scholar is still that Artivore broil spam, which leads me down the path where, yeah, I made a video, 2 days ago, where I said basically that I want Miasma 2 back for Scholar, and I think that would be awesome, because then we would keep 2 damage over time effects ticking on a single target for the most potency possible. And I think that would be much more interesting. Like, and I'm literally talking about like 1 other 30-second damage over time effect to manage. Like, we are a far cry from A Realm Reborn. We're a far cry from even Stormblood, like Shadow Flare. Like, if you want my honest opinion, is Shadow Flare literally has had all of its damage, instead of a dot, wrapped into 1 single burst and put into Sage's Psyche ability. Like, I look at Psyche as being like a wrapped up Shadow Flare, and literally Eucrasian Dyscrasia being a Miasma 2. And then I feel all kind of different ways, guys. I'm gonna be real, because Sage already had Numa, and all the other like they also had Phlegma Balls. So I'm kind of at the point where, and this could always change, because I mean, I'm still thinking about things, but I'm at the point where I don't think that in the main story questline associated content that there is any way that we can justify making it much more difficult, because we cannot block players. But this casual content is kind of a slog to go through as healers. Like, me personally, I see myself doing Sage through Expert Roulette. I 100% do. I think that it will be much more engaging for me. But now, on the other hand, you cannot make it more difficult, because you cannot block the players, the more casual players, the people who just want to do like RP or just want to do crafting and stuff. That's not fair to them. And then on the flip side, while healers may not explicitly be a requirement for the Omega Protocol, as it's been proven, healers make such a incredible difference in efficiency that not taking a healer, even if you could get away with it, which again requires such a level of precision and such a level of skill, I think that is ridiculous. Unless you have done it yourself, I think it's insane to read. I think that is like the level of hubris of like, it's too much to say unless you've done it. That's difficult to do top without a healer. But even if you could, you are losing so much efficiency in terms of like literally just damage, and that is ultimately what is kind of king in this game, is you're trying your best to like slot everything as good as possible. And I also do think that it would be probably pretty unlikely to hear people universally say that healing is trivial in those fights. At least the prog portion. Let me be clear. Once you have something on farm, I get it. The mechanical sense of, I see this cast bar, I hit Sacred Soil, it comes out in even me. I get exactly what people are going to mean. But during prog, it is pretty intense. Of course, things are streamlined with MIT sheets and MIT planning that you like get used to, but you know what I mean. Like, I would still say that it is non-trivial, and I'd say that it is still one of the harder roles to do in prog. I'm going to end with this thought, is that even when you do get into farm mode, things do start to fall back into the broil span. And that the moment-to-moment gameplay for healers is not necessarily the most engaging thing, purely because of the DPS, or rather lack of DPS options for the majority of the healers, and that when you are a healer in an exceptional circumstance or completely novel content like a prog point, then it becomes really, really amazing. You have those cool little moments that you do where it's like, oh wow, like this barrier basically invalidated a mechanic. Don't nerf my crit low shield, please. But that feels good. That is like, oh cool. But then it starts to become routine and becomes the boring, and then you start realizing the broil span between it. And I think that we're kind of at the point in all levels of play where we need the normal gameplay loop, the moments that are not exceptional moments, to be uplifted a little bit, because those exceptional moments feel really good as a healer. I feel so good when I'm doing something like that, but the moment to moment needs a little bit of a buff. It needs a little bit more excitement. And again, I'm not a game designer myself. I'm a pretty simple guy, but I definitely think that enhancing and making the DPS portion of the healer's toolkits, as in those unremarkable moments, because hey, I don't need to deploy a GCD barrier now, so I'm just broiling, bro. Making those moments a little bit more exciting would overall elevate the healer experience a lot. And so that's why you see me make videos like, please add Miasma 2 back, and some people took it very wrongly and said, oh, he wants to homogenize the Scholar with the same. No. It's just Miasma 2 used to be in our wheelhouse, and seeing it again and the double dot management, it hit my nostalgia, bro. Why you gotta play me dirty like that? So that's more what I'm getting at. And so I think that that's almost the line that I want to end the video on, is the exceptional moments of a healer feel great. The moment when you put everything together and then you have like a massive XCOG recitation XCOG, you know what I'm talking about, the big one, on the tank, pop in the dungeon, and ooh, that's good, because now you had even less need to heal them. Just crazy. Art of War. Which unfortunately feeds into my point, is we need to make the normal, the average, the baseline a little bit more interesting, and that's why I'm like, hey, add some funky DPS button toolkit stuffs, because right now I think that the healing part of it, those exceptional moments, feel good, but the normal is so broil that it kind of gets lost in that.